what happens when my father wears torn shoes every day. The torn shoes. I was just a little boy when I first noticed my father's shoes. They were old, faded, and torn from the sides. Every time he walked, I could see his toes peeking out. At first, I thought it was funny. I even asked him once, "Papa, why don't you buy new shoes? These ones look broken." He smiled at me, patted my head, and said, "These shoes still have life. Why waste money?" As a child, I didn't understand. I thought he was just being stubborn or careless. But later, I realized there was a bigger story hidden inside those torn shoes. My father's sacrifice. My father worked as a laborer. Every morning, before the sun rose, he would leave home with his old bag and those torn shoes. He walked miles to reach his workplace. The ground was hot in the summer and freezing in the winter, but his feet carried him every day. At night, when he returned home, his shoes were covered with dust. Sometimes they were wet with rain, sometimes cracked with mud. Still, he wore them the next day, without complaint. Meanwhile, I had new shoes for school. My younger sister had colorful sandals. My mother wore simple but decent slippers. Only my father walked in torn shoes. I asked my mother, "Why doesn't Papa buy new ones?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she whispered, "Because he spends his money on us. He saves every little coin so you and your sister can study, eat well, and live better. He wears torn shoes, so you don't have to." The day of embarrassment. One day, our school announced a parent-teacher meeting. I was nervous but also excited. I wanted my father to come because he always supported my studies. That morning, he dressed in his cleanest clothes. He ironed his shirt and combed his hair. But when I looked down, I saw the same torn shoes. My heart sank. At school, when we walked into the classroom, some children giggled. One boy whispered loudly, "Look at his father's shoes. They are broken." Everyone laughed. My face burned with shame. After the meeting, while we were walking back home, I looked at him with frustration. "Papa, why don't you buy new shoes? People laugh at you. Don't you feel embarrassed?" He stopped for a moment. His eyes were tired but gentle. He said, "Son, I am not ashamed. These shoes tell a story of my hard work. They carry the weight of my struggles. As long as you and your sister can walk in comfort, I don't mind walking in torn shoes." I stayed quiet. His words pierced my heart, but I was too young to fully understand them. Lesson in sacrifice. Years passed. I grew older, wiser, and more aware of the world. I saw my father's hands, rough and calloused from years of labor. I saw his back, bent from carrying heavy loads. And I saw his shoes, still torn, patched, and worn out. One day, I told him, "Papa, please buy something for yourself. At least buy new shoes." He smiled again, the same smile he always wore. "Why should I? My shoes are fine. I'd rather save money for your education." At that moment, I understood the truth. My father was not poor because he couldn't buy shoes. He was rich in love, sacrifice, and selflessness. His torn shoes were not a sign of weakness. They were a symbol of his strength. The turning point. When I went to college, I worked part-time. I saved my first salary for weeks. I didn't buy food from the cafeteria. I didn't spend on friends. I had only one mission, to buy new shoes for my father. Finally, the day came. I went to the market and chose the best pair of strong, comfortable shoes. I brought them home, wrapped in a box. When I gave them to my father, his eyes filled with tears. He held the shoes, then looked at me. "My son, you didn't have to." "Yes, Papa," I said with a trembling voice. "I had to, because all my life, you were torn shoes so I could walk in comfort. Now it's my turn." For the first time, I saw my father's tears fall. They were not tears of sadness, but tears of pride and love. The realization. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about all the years my father had silently sacrificed for us. He never bought anything for himself. He never complained. He walked miles in broken shoes just to give us a better life. I realized that my father was my first teacher of sacrifice, my first guide in patience, and my first hero in life. His torn shoes taught me more than any school book ever could. They taught me, true wealth is not about money, but about love. Happiness is not in comfort, but in sacrifice. Respect is not in what you wear, but in how you live. Years later, today, I am a grown man. I have a job, a family, and everything I once dreamed of. But I still remember those torn shoes. They remind me of where I came from, and who made me who I am. My father doesn't wear torn shoes anymore. Now, he wears the best pair I can buy. But sometimes, when I see him walking, I imagine those old shoes again, the shoes that carried him through struggle, pain, and sacrifice. And I realize something powerful. The real value of shoes is not in how new they are, but in the journey they carry. My father's torn shoes carried the weight of love, sacrifice, and dreams. They were the foundation of my success. Final lesson. So, what happens when my father wears torn shoes every day? He teaches me the greatest lesson of life, that a parent's love is silent, endless, and selfless. That true heroes don't wear crowns or capes, they wear torn shoes. And today, whenever life gets hard, I look back at my father's shoes in my memory and remind myself, if my father could walk through storms in torn shoes, then I can walk through anything in life with courage.